to the Big Picture podcast. It is I, Jack Graham, back in the hosting chair again for this fantastic episode on the movie Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice. But before I get introduced to the panel, usually expect four of us here. Well, there is going to be four of us here, but not the usual four. Unfortunately, one of our very own. You may have heard in the Shettleston news, it was quite a big thing over there. Shettleston news, Shetland news.
Good start.
Great. Fantastic start. Either way, Lewis Jameson's got COVID, but he's not dead. So we wish him a speedy recovery. We don't want him to be suffering with these symptoms for too long. He should be hopefully back for our next episode. We'll reveal that at the end of this. But as I said, we've got four panellists anyway, so we'll introduce them. We'll come in as our last episode's champion and also the People's Champion. So he's been back to back, I think. I don't know. I called him Wheezy in the last episode, but I can't think of a funny Batman Superman pun. I'm tired. I won't lie, but it's Rhys Cook.
Great. Putting in a lot of effort this time. I like that. I'm glad you specified that Lewis isn't dead. That was good. You know? He's got COVID, but he's not dead. That's the main thing. Yeah, back to back and People's Champ. It feels good, so I'm glad to be here.
I've lost some faith in the people after I won't lie. I was a recurring victim in that, and now I just can't win anything. You wonder why I host so many episodes, listeners? Well, that's the reason why. Next, we have... see, I don't even have any snappy, whippy intros. It's Adam. How you doing, Adam?
I'm good. How are you, Jack? You alright?
I mean, I'm disappointed in myself, but I'm alright. I'm alright.
It's good to hear.
Good.
Again, I'm so taken aback with Lewis having COVID. I've got nothing. I've been grief stricken because of it. Hoping my friend's alright. Stuart, how you doing?
Oh, I'm the same, Jack. You know, my heart goes out to Lewis. Who'd have thought that his kryptonite was COVID? I didn't.
Great.
But yeah, we'll pull through. We'll take the hit. The ratings will plummet, but hopefully, Lewis, if you're listening, and if you're not, I mean, we'll wait to bring the team together. But we'll hope you're back for the next episode.
Brilliant stuff. And as I said, we've got four panellists, and for the first time ever on the Big Picture podcast, we have a special guest.
Oh, who is it?
And it is the
Lewis.
host. It is the host and the founder of First Time Films, a good friend but a greater enemy of mine, David Campbell. How are we doing?
It's a pleasure, Jack. A pleasure to be on the show.
You know what? I wouldn't have had any other first guest for this podcast. Yeah, I'm glad you're here, my friend.
I'd have had a few others, but
I could have thought Zack Snyder's probably top of the list, and then like 150 more above me. But I'm glad you settled. I'm happy to watch that to discuss Batman vs Superman. Man, it's a movie I haven't seen in quite a while. But revisiting it, you know, I have some new thoughts, but sort of solidified some opinions I already had, so I'm excited.
But before we get into the discussion of the movie, you can talk to us, David, about like your podcast in case listeners don't know what it is, First Time Films, and kind of any other projects you've got going on now.
Yeah, so basically, you know, I love talking about myself, Jack, so thank you very much for the opportunity. You know, First Time Films started it 2 years ago, roughly. Basically, the concept is simple. We take a film that one or more of our panellists haven't seen before, and we talk about it. You know, we analyse it. We talk a load of other shit as well during the shows, and then we discuss some movie news at the end, things happening in the contemporary world of cinema. Apart from that, my first feature film is in post-production right now, 10 Reasons Not to Make a Movie. And another script that I've written, we're in pre-production on a little project for that. I can't say too much about it, but got some good big Scottish names attached to it, so I'm very excited.
Big Picture exclusive.
Yeah.
See the calibre of guest I'm bringing in for this show, guys. You know, I've literally got the upper echelon of podcasting talent in the southwest of Scotland.
Rhys, how's your films going on? That you've got a couple in production, don't you?
yeah, just a 2 or 3, but again, I can't really talk about it much either. James Bond coming out soon, so yeah.
Keeps getting pushed back. I'm upset for you, man.
I know, but sorry, Cineworld. Boris Johnson's trying to get it going, but you know, it's we'll do what we can.
So
No Time to Die. Looks like there is a lot of time to die, apparently.
Rest in peace, Lewis.
That's what I was thinking.
Whoa.
Well, I didn't bring Lewis into that. I just thought because they were all talking about it's pushed back.
Oh, we're all friends here. It's absolutely fine. But before we get on to talking about the movie again, I put a wee poll on Twitter @_the big picture where we asked our followers who do they prefer, Batman or Superman, and unsurprisingly, 89% of the Twitter poll thinks that Batman is superior to Superman. Is that echoed amongst our panelists here? I'll go Adam first. Do you prefer Batman to Superman?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm like to say why.
Aye, go ahead, fine.
I just think that I've always just found Superman just a bit boring. I just think he's it's just a like superhero archetype. They're like first superhero, okay, he can do anything, and he's all this, and he loves America, great, fantastic. Batman, I just think it's got a lot more depth, a lot more interesting storylines about him.
I agree with you. I think Superman's shite. I've got no interest in him. Just kind of. It feels like just such a. I was going to say a cop out for a superhero. You know what I mean? Because just the name himself, Superman, superhero. I don't know. Stuart, what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, Batman all the way. Even if there's like bad Batman movies, I'll still enjoy them. But Superman's just like we said, is dead boring. I feel like they really isn't. I don't know if this is true, but he's obviously one of the first superheroes that were created. But I feel like they just went all in too fast. They're like, I'll just give him everything, and I don't think that's very fair.
Well, David, do you think it's particularly fair that Superman has everything, like Stuart was saying?
Yeah, it's the overpowered nature of Superman that I think just makes him a bit boring, because there's not many narratives you can have with Superman on his own, because there's very few villains you can put him up against that would be considered a genuine threat. But more than that as well, I think the problem with Superman is the cast of characters around him just aren't very interesting. If you look at traditionally, like what are you going to have a movie about? The romance troubles with him and Lois Lane. At least with Batman, you have all those iconic villains, Joker, Riddler, Penguin, etc., and you have the Bat family to support him. So it's not even just the characters alone in isolation that creates this difference in opinion between them. It's the world that's been built around them over the years, I think.
I agree with that 100% as well. Obviously, like they both find themselves in the DC universe, but they kind of within that they create their own world. And as you said, Batman has X amount of villains and whatnot. Rhys, are you this kind of same opinion with the rest of the panel here that Batman's better than Superman?
No, you're all wrong. Batman is not a superhero. He's just a Tory with a cape. Everyone knows that the villains they're that make the Batman films, and Joker's the good guy. I don't actually think Batman's not got any superpowers. He's not a superhero at all. He's just rich.
He's a vigilante.
He's a dick.
All that money getting to his head, and he thinks he has to become some sort of superhero, which quite obviously is not in the eyes of Rhys.
No, he's not a superhero. But who's the best Batman? Who portrayed Batman the best? That's the real question.
Are you asking me?
I'm asking you. I'm asking everyone really.
My favourite portrayal of Batman is Will Arnett.
Yep, that's the answer.
Yep.
Because there's no greater Batman movie than Lego Batman.
Well, that's true.
It's just as what it is. But we're not talking about Lego Batman because, quite frankly, you can't improve upon perfection, but you can improve upon the shit show that is Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice. And if you haven't seen the movie, it's set roughly 2 years after Superman's battle with Zod, which devastated the city of Metropolis. Obviously, hundreds of folk died, and there's so much damage left to the city. It left many citizens kind of feeling angry and helpless with the actions that Superman took upon that fight, including the crime-fighting billionaire that's not a superhero, Bruce Wayne. And now he's kind of became convinced that Superman's a bit of a threat to humanity and goes in a bit of a personal vendetta to end his reign on Earth, while the wee prick Lex Luthor launches his own crusade against the Man of Steel. Before we kind of go into critiquing it a wee bit, just I want to kind of get initial thoughts about after you saw this movie. How did you come out feeling? Did you think it was alright? Did you think it was decent? Did you think there was a lot to be left desired and whatnot? David, I'll just come to you first. What was your initial thoughts on Batman vs Superman?
I think I'm in the minority with it because I remember seeing it at the time and I was so skeptical because you heard the rumours like DC are trying to rush this shared universe to try and catch up with Marvel, get all the monies in, etc., etc. And I think the worst parts of the movie are where that's true. You know, the movie is overstuffed in a lot of ways and it doesn't quite have a flowing narrative as much as you like, especially in the theatrical cut. But I actually think there's a lot to like about it. I think the new casting that was introduced in this movie is stellar. I think Ben Affleck, it's a shame it didn't work out for him better as Batman, because I think he puts in a really, really good first showing here, as does Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman when she comes into it. And there are really good sort of through lines throughout it. There's interesting little stories like Lex Luthor with Senator Finch, like their interactions I absolutely love. Jeremy Irons as Alfred, and the action scenes are actually really, really good. Like you said, Jack, there's a lot to poke holes in about it. One scene in particular that I'm sure we'll come on to, but compared to everyone else, I actually have a lot of enjoyment that I can take from Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice.
Well, I'm glad that someone can, because I did not like it at all. Rhys, I'll come on to you. I think this may have been your first time watching Batman vs Superman. You probably didn't have much expectations going into this. What did you think after it?
Yeah, well, I feel like the films we've been watching recently, I'd actually be a good guest on David's podcast, because every film we've watched recently, it's been my first viewing. But I did enjoy Avatar, I did not enjoy Batman v Superman. I feel like it was quite safe. Like the story wasn't great. It was like the media and the politicians are portraying a narrative that, you know, superheroes aren't actually great and maybe they need to be regulated and they need to follow under some form of law. And I just felt like the religious aspects were a bit boring, really. I didn't really enjoy it at all.
I think for me with this movie is that the title kind of gives it away of what is leading to Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice. So you always knew it was going to lead to inevitably the Justice League, and it was something that I wasn't much excited for. As what David said, it was a bit of a rush to catch up with the MCU. Adam, what was your takeaway in Batman vs Superman?
A bit of nothing. I felt I'd heard quite a lot about it, and I had someone in work who was telling me all about it, and he was like, "Oh, you know, I hate it, but also I really like it." And I was okay. And then I went and I didn't see it at the cinema. I seen it afterwards, but I just remember I was really bored, and I'm sure I was watching it, and then all of a sudden I was like, "Here, there's 30 minutes on here." I had to go back because I just switched off. I thought I didn't fall asleep. I just switched off for 30 minutes. I just got really bored, zoned out, and I missed 30 minutes of this film. I had to go back. I will say, I was kind of, when I seen it again for this, I was a wee bit more like, I was able to follow it a bit better, and I felt like I was, but I don't know if that was just because I wanted to make sure I seen every detail, you know, because I take my research seriously, or if it was because it was better in the second viewing.
You probably zoned out in the first 30 minutes because you had to find out that Batman's parents are dead. It's a very important part of the film. Batman's parents are dead.
That is honestly, yeah, that's my first note, Rhys. My first note I took for this film. Young Bruce intro boring. Because it's done so many times. And it's not, I don't want to say it's a fault of the film, because they can't give it a new angle. Let's be honest. You know, Joker did well to give it a new angle, but apart from that, it's not had a new angle in years, because it can't. It's the same thing, you know. And what I found funny was when the pearl necklace breaking is like the kind of distinct thing from Batman's parents dying, and the way it happens in this is that he has the gun underneath her necklace, and then the gun cocking back is what breaks it. And I thought, why is it so contrived? Why normally he just grabs it? Why did they go to that much effort?
It's just I don't know. I said it's just a bit boring, but someone that's certainly not boring, Stuart Fitzgerald. What's your take on the movie?
Oh, you old sweet talker, you.
If you saw me on camera, I was doing the kind of air quotation marks, so don't worry about it.
We've
told you again about this camera, all right? Again, I'll just echo a lot of the thoughts that's been said. I went to see it in the movie. I went to see it in the cinema, and really disappointed the first time. And I don't think I've watched it since until for this podcast. Yeah, there's too much going on. I don't know whether it's like studio involvement, like people are saying, trying to rush the Justice League out to catch up with Marvel, or if it's just the fact, like, the thing about Zack Snyder is a lot of the stuff he puts in this, like, there's a good movie somewhere underneath it all, but I feel like he tries to be too clever, and he tries to touch on too many things and ends up saying nothing. So I feel like there's before I get onto my pitch later on, there's like parts of this movie that's used just to push the plot along, and I feel like it'd be better if that was the plot. I just feel like it's just too much going on, too many cooks in the kitchen, and it's just so, like people have said, it's so contrived, and the amount of slow motion in this movie, that's why it's so long. Half of it's in slow motion. If he sped it up, it'd be a perfectly normal film. But
I think you see that in the extended cut as well, as you were saying, that there was like a lot of plots that were starting to happen, and you're just left a bit confused. I think folk do prefer the extended cut, but I still felt equally as confused watching that as I did the theatrical version.
I never even watched the extended version. I just rented the theatrical cut.
But as we all know, it doesn't take a lot for me to get confused about anything. But we'll move on. Something that David picked up on, I've echoed to a lot of you before, that I'm not a fan of Ben Affleck as Batman. But I think that could be because the movies he's been in aren't good. And I think that might just have a lot to do with it. Adam, I'll come to you first, because I think you might have been of a different opinion of me with Ben Affleck as Batman. Are you quite a fan of him?
Yeah, I think I enjoyed him. I think out of the things in the movie, that's one of the things I enjoyed. David mentioned it. Jeremy Irons is really good as an Alfred, and I don't agree with a lot of decisions they made for Batman. The fact he kills people, we're just gonna get on the table. What's that about? It just goes against Batman as a character. But I liked how Alfred, is still his moral compass, and they still had that relationship, and I did think it played really well on screen. And so I felt the scenes when it was those two, I really did feel like I was watching, a bit. It was like a bit of a Batman film. I enjoyed those bits. I enjoyed Ben Affleck's performance, I'd say, more than most actors in the film, but I would say he's not my favourite Batman or anything.
No, definitely not the favourite Batman, but I'll come to you next, Rhys. Obviously, Ben Affleck's Batman and Bruce Wayne, he took issues with what Superman did in his battle with Zod, and that kind of leads to the story of this movie to begin with. Anyway, do you think it's just a bit of a clutching at straws to get this going because of that narrative that's been written, or do you think it was always something that should have happened in the first place?
Well, I was very interested to see that a building had just fallen down, and through all the rubble and all the smoke, Batman was able to see Superman flying through the air miles and miles away. So that was a bit strange. I just want to echo Adam. I actually think Ben Affleck did a good job in this portrayal. I thought you can't really fault him too much. It's more the character that was written for him that was pretty poor. But I actually thought his performance was good. The storyline, it's a bit lazy. I think the media, again, it's something that's so tried, and you see it in films all the time. The media push a narrative, and then one character follows that narrative. The other character is obviously either the opposite of the narrative, or just doesn't follow it at all. I thought it was a bit pretty lazy, to be honest. It didn't really grab me at all. It took me ages to actually get into the film, and I was a bit bored. I thought the senator as well. You can't really have Elastigirl as a senator. All I could do was picture Elastigirl if they was just talking. So I don't know. I thought it was pretty lazy, to be honest, Jack.
I'm the same. It made me feel as if it felt a bit flat. But David, you said before you absolutely love Holly Hunter as Senator Finch in this, don't you?
Well, if anyone wants to win later on, put more Senator Finch in this movie. I'm a huge fan of that character, and I'll tell you why. Because Lex Luthor, the portrayal of Lex Luthor by Jesse Eisenberg, gets a lot of stick. But I think the scenes where those two are interacting are the scenes where he is the best, because that facade comes down. Like this Lex Luthor isn't the sort of criminal stoic mastermind you see in the comics and stuff like that. He's more of a showman. There's a public persona to him. And when she goes to him and she says, "No, I'm not going to let," he's trying to get kryptonite in the country, and she's like, "No, I'm blocking it," because she sees right through what he's trying to do. And it's that moment where he just stares at her and he starts tapping his fingers on the desk. I'm like, yes, this is good drama. And I think that's maybe the disconnect with this movie is a lot of the plot points, like you said, they're a bit contrived, feels a bit obvious, but the acting in it really, I think, raises a lot of scenes and a lot of moments.
I'm not a big fan of Alex Lord. I think it's pretty corny. The portrayal is a bit cheesy. Something just didn't sit right with me. But this might be a bit controversial in saying this. I don't know, but I think one of the worst things about this film for me, or at least the way it was revealed, was Wonder Woman being in this movie. And I would say because that would have served as a better surprise in the movie rather than being shown in the trailer. Because from that, you kind of, I don't know, I felt really annoyed, and when I saw this, I wasn't excited.
I totally understand what you're saying about things being spoiled in the trailer, because I despise it with a passion. And I think superhero movies recently have been the sort of biggest, they've been the biggest offenders of that. However, I totally disagree that it falls flat. For me, that moment where, because we see her in the Turkish Airlines flight and she's watching it all unfold, see when she comes down and she defends Batman from Doomsday, and that we hear that Wonder Woman score for the first time, which is a cracking piece of music, by the way. I remember being really, really hyped to see that. And then there is something about, like you said, the shot is spoiled in the trailer, but seeing the DC Trinity on screen for the first time together in live action, even now, I found it really cool to watch.
I think I have a bit of again, it could just be something from my perspective, because I have got a bit of a disconnect. I don't feel that invested in kind of DC as a whole. But obviously, she did play a big part in the movie, Stuart, and I want to know what your kind of opinion of the first kind of sight of Wonder Woman and Batman vs Superman was like.
I'm really torn, because on the one hand, the movie's so overstuffed with all these plot lines. Wonder Woman and Diana Prince's storyline didn't really need to be in it. The whole Justice League setup, the famous email with all the attachments of the Justice League. But on the other hand, I got to agree with David. I really enjoyed, I actually completely forgot when I was in the film that she was going to show up. So when she does just show up to save Batman's bacon, and that theme goes, and I hate the fight. That last fight scene, I really do not like the motivation of it and how it looks. The CGI is terrible, but I can't help but enjoy Wonder Woman in it. I think she's the only part I like, because she gives the best performance. There's a bit where Doomsday knocks her back, and she gives a little kind of a smirk, which was apparently unscripted. I think Zack Snyder said that was all on Gal Gadot that did that, and I think it's a glimpse of a character behind the curtain, which I don't think anyone else. I mean, Batman's just running away the whole time, which is fair enough, because as Rhys has famously said, Batman's not a superhero. He has nothing to do with that. Exactly. He's a Tory with a cape, apparently. Superman's a redneck. Anything from another planet, he immediately, doesn't like it. So, I feel like Wonder Woman and Gal Gadot's part of the film, I actually like it more than I should, because I feel like Wonder Woman deserves more than what she was given in this film. And then, of course, she got her own movie, which is probably the best DCEU film so far. So I'm I'm 50-50. I really don't know how to feel about it. I enjoy it, but I can see an argument needs to be said for it to be taken out of the film.
What side of the coin do you fall on, Adam, about Wonder Woman?
I guess I kind of agree that I didn't feel as hyped for inclusion. As much as I actually quite enjoy a lot of DC stuff, I agree with you, Jack. I didn't feel that hyped for our inclusion. The Hans Zimmer, by the way, we're talking about the Wonder Woman score, is great. The whole score for the film is really good. Hans Zimmer, as always, he delivers. He's really they push the boat out to get one of the best, and he does. It's a great score. That scene, okay. As much as I didn't really feel hyped for her inclusion in general, it kind of annoyed me. She was just there. She was just involved in the build-up. When she does join that fight, you could step aside and say that was a really good scene, and I felt it. I enjoyed that. That's the kind of scene I enjoy in a superhero movie. I like the kind of, good guy shows up, saves the day kind of thing. I'm a sucker for it, and I did enjoy it. But I think I kind of fall same way as Stuart. I can kind of see both sides, and I think if I had to, I'd probably take her out the film. I think I would go a bit hard on that side for me.
Rhys, you've heard everyone else talk about the Rhys about 2 maybe wouldn't have had Wonder Woman in the movie. What do you think about it?
I'm struggling to understand why you would want her not in the movie. I thought when she does come in, it adds something to the movie that wasn't quite there. There was no spark in the movie for the longest time, and then you get little glimpses of her throughout the film, and then when she does eventually come in, it's like, here we go, and I think it was David that said the smirk that she has, it just kind of, you actually feel something towards the fight, because both the fight between Batman and Superman, and in that fight, they kind of fall a bit flat, but it kind of picks up a bit, particularly when Wonder Woman comes in. So I'm very much for Wonder Woman being in this film.
And I think before we kind of get on to the pictures, David kind of brought up the villain that they need to team up and fight against, Doomsday. I kind of want to go to you here, Stuart, first before we talk to everyone else. I kind of remember that we were talking about Doomsday when it was happening. I think you were a bit annoyed by it at the time.
I hate him. I really, 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 really do not like the Doomsdays in this film. I don't like how he comes about. I don't like how he looks. I don't like any part of the final fight apart from what I said about like Wonder Woman, the only one emoting. Oh, how do you throw away such a like good storyline on just a 15-minute fight that's rubbish? Like the whole part of the fight is awful. Like, oh, I just really don't like it. I don't like his inclusion in this film at all. He didn't need to be in it.
I'm the exact same, because I think it was a kind of announced before even the movie came out that Doomsday was going to be part of this, and you're thinking, oh, this has like a lot of potential where it could go, but again, a 15-minute fight and just absolutely falls flat. David, when you heard about Doomsday being in this movie, were you excited about the inclusion of this villain, or did you think it was just a recipe for disaster?
Neither of them really. Just sort of, he's a bit meh. Like, it's like I said, the Superman supporting characters and villains have never really interested me. And Doomsday is one of those ones where I'm just like, again, like all Superman villains, he needs to be able to compete against them in some way. So he's meant to be like this like a perfect being. I think the way the movie used him, was just as like a monster of the week type creature. Like, he's just there because Lex Luthor is not like a physical villain. So you need that muscle. You need someone to have the final fight against the heroes. So I get it from that sense. Having said that, I recognise that there is some attachment to Doomsday from fans of the comics, and there's people who feel a lot more strongly than me about it. So for that reason, I'd ultimately say replace the Doomsday character with something else there. However, having said that, I think he does ultimately serve a purpose in the end, which is to be the physically imposing foe that can go up against the DC Trinity in the end up.
I do fully get that, but I just feel as if that Doomsday was a bit of a throwaway come the end of the movie, Rhys. Do you agree, or do you think Doomsday was portrayed really well during this?
No, I've got to agree with David again. I think you can't really have Lex Luthor do the final fight because he's not physical or anything like that. So you do have to have someone that can fight Superman, and the only real person or being that can do that is Doomsday, because of kryptonite and all that malarkey. He's got the powers and all that. So yeah, it was kind of needed, but it just wasn't executed very well. The fight was very boring. It was very bland. It certainly wasn't an end game fight. Yeah, I don't know. It just kind of fell flat. It was a poor execution.
Before we get to the pitches, Adam, the DC Trinity going up against Doomsday, did it fall flat for you? Did you enjoy it? Did you think Doomsday could have served in a better way?
I think it's hard. I think Doomsday in general, I think, David said he's kind of a weak character in the sense that he's just a big grey villain, isn't he, at the end of the day? And I just think we're kind of sick as an audience of just, villains with no personality. And I understand it, he's there, he's just purely brawn, and he does serve that purpose well. But I agree, if I was a bit flat, you get it build up, and then that's meant to be this kind of turning point in the film, and I think it's just not there. It lacks the punch.
The problem with him is he's just sort of a diet dark side, isn't he?
Yeah, he's really less personality as well.
Yeah.
Just
maybe that'll be included in someone's pitch. Who knows?
Before we go into the pitches, I've heard like a few mentions of it so far, and it's been a bit controversial. I actually think that Jesse Eisenberg does a really good job of portraying Lex Luthor. I thought he was like kind of sinister in a way, but it wasn't too evil. He kind of draws you in. You can see that he's got all the power. I thought he did a really good job, and I've heard, I think Adam said that he did a bad job. But someone said it at one point and said he didn't enjoy his portrayal, and I actually really enjoyed it.
I agree with Rhys. To me, he's the Silicon Valley Lex Luthor. Is what he is. Like when Lex Luthor was first invented as a character, he's the head of this corporate machine, and he's like represents the masculine traits of corporate America. But times have changed since then, and we see folks like Mark Zuckerberg sorry, I can't even speak, get that name out of my mouth. Hate him so much. You see people like that at the heads of these massive corporations. So I think this portrayal was meant to reflect the changing of those times, and I get why it would be grating for a lot of people. But I actually think that's the intention of the character, is to be a bit grating, to be a bit annoying, and for that performative side of him to be over the top. But like I said, I get both sides of it, but I agree with Rhys. I enjoyed it.
See, it's the after credits scene that kind of sours it for me as well, because I think that's just absolutely honking. I guess we'll talk about Lex Luthor with the pitches. Adam, what's your take on him? Did you enjoy it? I think it was me that I was saying I didn't like it, and the after credit scene was absolutely horrible for me.
No, I didn't enjoy it, but I'll tell you why. I think it's an understandable reason why I didn't enjoy it. I think is that someone who's a fan of the comics in general, and also like just DC related media, and I think for me, David kind of mentioned it, Lex Luthor, he's this stoic bad guy. And actually, it's a really good point. I hadn't thought of it. I like the wee link you did there, David, is Mark Zuckerberg. So it's Jesse Eisenberg also played him in The Social Network. But, I do agree. That's actually quite a really good point about the shift in times. But I think that sometimes when you go see a film, I think like a film like this, when you got the classic characters, I want to see the classic villain as well. And for me, I just think that he didn't deliver in that sense. And I didn't. But I don't want to. I'm going to go into too much. But maybe my pitch is to do with that. But we'll just. So I don't want to reveal too much. Please carry on.
Well, funny you say that, because now we're getting on to the bit you're all waiting for, and that is the pitches of how this podcast can improve Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice. But we're going to do it a little bit differently today. Usually we have four years, you three and Lewis, and you will give your pitches, and then you will submit votes to me, the host, and whoever gets the most votes will win the episode. But we have a guest here from First Time Films, David Campbell, and you will not be submitting your votes on who you think should win this episode for the big picture. I know, it's such a surprise, isn't it, of what's happening?
It's news to me.
No wonder Lewis is off sick.
David Campbell will indeed be critiquing and judging all your pitches that happens, and we'll be asking questions, and we'll give feedback once everyone's done, and he will declare this episode's big picture. So you better be ready for that. And
exciting.
I was looking through who's won the most episodes out of you lot so far, and Rhys and Stewart are both tied for 2, and Adam's only won 1, so I think it's fair to say that Adam should get to pitch first.
That doesn't sound fair at all.
I couldn't care less about you trying to be honest, you know that, like.
We're being slandered and hated on
just because we're good at our jobs.
Yeah, I know.
But Rhys, you've gone back to back. You know what I mean? You don't need to pitch first.
I'm the people's champ. Don't forget that part.
You're not the people's champ either. Oh, you are the people's champ. Sorry. So it shouldn't matter when you pitch. You should be just a good pitcher. But Adam, take it away. Impress our guest.
Right. Thank you. Well, going by what you said about Lex Luthor, I'm probably not going to impress him that much. But I'm going to go on anyway. I'm going to stick to my guns because that's what I do. I'm a man of principles. And first of all, I'd like to say when I thought about pitching, my favourite DC storyline by far is the Injustice storyline. I don't know how many has read that. I know Stuart has, because I bought him it for his birthday. And I would love to use that because that's got kind of Batman, Superman themes. But you need an established universe, so I would respect that. It wouldn't be possible. So I understand why they didn't do it. And we all know that with my pitches, I tend to like try and reinvent the wheel, and I just pitch a whole new film. But I'm not going to do that this time because
Thank God.
that's what
I don't have an hour to sit about and listen to your shit.
But
Sorry,
I'm going to go, and I mentioned it briefly, Lex Luthor. And I do you know what? I like Jesse Eisenberg as a person. I really like him as an actor as well. And I think his portrayal, I think he's not menacing enough for me. And I think the film could do with someone who portrays Lex Luthor as a kind of overarching menacing villain. I just think having him as this kind of schemer, yeah, I know that reflects the kind of modern thing. But for me, if you want a schemer in a film, you go for a Riddler. You go for I've tried to spell Mr. Mispicker. I can't spell a name, but if you know your stuff, he's a bit of a kind of prankster, kind of trickster as well. I just think that's not who Lex Luthor is. He's a schemer, but at the same time, he's in your face. He's there. He's intimidating. So I decided I'd recast him, and I thought hard about it. And if we were keeping with the younger theme, like obviously Jesse Eisenberg was quite young, I would have maybe gone with Jamie Dornan because we've seen him be really good at being menacing in The Fall and things like that. We know he's got a really good range, but I wanted someone older because I feel like Ben Affleck's quite old as Batman. So why would you have a mature Ben Affleck, a mature Batman, sorry, and then you've got Lex Luthor, and you feel like the timeline should kind of be playing close together. You'd want them to be a similar age. So I went for Bryan Cranston. I felt, we know he can be baldy from Breaking Bad, but I also feel like you watch that, he's menacing, he's dark, but he's also clever. And I think that for me, if I watch this again and I picture the scenes and I give Bryan Cranston as Lex Luthor, I'm scared. I watch it and when I watch a film like this, I want to be scared of the villain. I want to support the good guys because I want them to win. Well, in this, because I didn't really care that much about Lex Luthor when I watched it, I felt I couldn't really get behind the heroes. And I think for me, when you watch a superhero film, you kind of want to support the heroes. I think if you have a real menacing villain like Bryan Cranston's Lex Luthor, I think that works. So that's my big pitch.
So, David, Adam's pitched that he wants to make Lex Luthor more menacing in the movie and recast him as Bryan Cranston. Question away. Have at it.
Yeah, I like that you brought up the Injustice storyline, Adam. I'm a huge fan of that as well. And I think that would have utilised Superman in a very interesting way. Like you said, he's a bit bland, but turn him into somewhat of a villain. That might sound good. Now, yeah, I'm trying to put my bias aside here. Obviously, I've said I'm a fan of Jesse Eisenberg, but also a fan of Bryan Cranston, who isn't. He's a fantastic actor. And I like this more stoic, more menacing portrayal of the character that you're talking about here. And you're right, he still retains that cleverness. You know what I mean? Bryan Cranston brings with him this sort of legitimacy. He carries a gravitas with him. So I do like bringing that to the part. However, the question I'd ask you, is that casting change enough to make any sort of major significant difference to the movie? Because we've seen the criticisms of certain plot lines in the movie needing streamlined. Is swapping those two out going to do enough to save Batman versus Superman?
Yeah, I felt like there was a lot of flaws in the film, but I felt it's hard to think of if I'm trying to do one change. I thought I couldn't. This is the change that has the most sweeping effect, and I think maybe it papers over the cracks a little bit, in the sense that having the bigger villain to drive the story, maybe it doesn't fix all the problems, no, but I think that it would give the film a huge positive, and I think that you would maybe give it a bit more, cut it a bit more slack for some of the flaws, because the main character, one of the main characters, would be so strong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. I like that. And the only thing I'm trying to think of these scenes that we've seen. Obviously, when they go to LexCorp, Bruce and Clark, and they have that interaction, that's going to play a lot differently with Bryan Cranston there instead of Jesse Eisenberg. I don't know better or worse, but it will certainly be a different feel.
Yeah.
And the scenes with Holly Hunter as well. Do you think that with a Bryan Cranston Lex Luthor, that would play out the same with like Granny's peach tea and the pot of piss and the bombing of the eating? Or do you think we'd see something different there? Would you need to replace that as well?
I think they would need a wee bit of work. I think they wrote those scenes for Jesse Eisenberg, and I think, as I say, we've talked about him, and to give him praise, I think they wrote those scenes for him, and I think he aces them as Jesse Eisenberg. I think that's exactly what they wanted, and I think he knocked it apart. But I think you would have to rewrite those kind of scenes a wee bit just to kind of suit what Bryan Cranston can bring to the role. But I think they would still. You could make those scenes work. I don't think you would need too much of a change. Maybe just to tone down the kind of lightheartedness, obviously, that Jesse Eisenberg brings through. You kind of, if you replace that with the kind of darkness that Bryan Cranston can bring, I think that could still work really well.
Yeah, and sort of one final query I would give you here, just to sort of maybe support your argument a wee bit. We haven't seen Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor pop up again inside the DCU. Now, that's not his fault. That's the fact that DCU has been on its last legs for a while now. It's sort of fallen apart. But do you think we would have seen it had it been an actor with the sort of, like I said, the gravitas of Bryan Cranston? Do you think he would have been invited back? And do you think the legacy of this Lex Luthor character would have been significantly changed?
Absolutely. I think that he's someone who a lot of fans, people who like Lex Luthor in the comics, I think would get behind, and they would want to see more from him. They would demand more Lex Luthor, and I think that's what you want. You want, in the day, you want that from your villains and your heroes. You want people to watch the portrayals and want more. If that's what you want, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose. No more questions, Your Honour. Adam is free for now.
Thank you. Once all three pictures are done, I want you to give your final thoughts of everything at the end. You can give them praise, you can shite on them or something. I don't know, do whatever you like. But I struggled with who to pick here to go next, Rhys or Stewart, and I can only think of Rhys going next just because R comes before S. So, Rhys, we've had a recast of a villain here. What's your big pitch for Batman vs Superman?
Right. Well, David, go easy on me here because my DC knowledge is not great. I only have really recently, in the last 5 or so years, started watching Marvel films. DC, not so much. But for me, this one, and I teased it a little bit, it fell flat. It didn't have the fight scene of Endgame, and Endgame's fight scene we know is amazing. So it didn't have that. So the movie for me was too safe. I think there should have been a war in the DC superhero universe. I'm not opposed to the main plot of the media and the politicians creating an agenda against superheroes because they want to regulate their powers and whatnot. But instead of having one superhero for and one superhero against, I think they should have had a war or a rift in the superhero community against the superheroes. So these are the teams. You got Batman, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman versus Superman, Green Lantern, and Flash. Right? I don't want them to end on happy terms. I want a proper, full-out fight. I want blood, sweat, tears. Or the film doesn't end with them being best pals just because the mum has the same name. I want them to hate each other. I want it to go on over a series of films, and I'm struggling to incorporate a way to have, Lex Luthor could be. I was thinking he could help one side as well. I was thinking so. Really, the good guys are kind of becoming the bad guys, and the reason that I've gone for this is because it's a bit controversial, and fans of certain superheroes, if you're a DC fan or if you're a Marvel fan, you generally like all the superheroes, but you have a favourite. So it would split the community down the middle. And I'm thinking, you have people talking about, well, who's better? Who do you prefer, Batman or Superman or Wonder Woman or Aquaman? Or, you people are actually talking about the film. And it kind of builds the DC universe back up again because, like you said, David, it's kind of on the ropes. So my pitch is a war between the DC superheroes.
So you're going about saying the movie's a bit too safe. So you want the rift in the superhero community of Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman going against Superman, Green Lantern, Flash, with that kind of war span over future movies potentially, and Lex Luthor maybe helping one side. Yeah,
I mean, even if you could also have another like the Riddler or Joker or someone helping the other team. There's so much potential for if one bad guy's helping one team, then another bad guy from a different universe, well, not universe, all in the same universe, but a different film genre could help another. There's so much scope for this. So, a bit controversial because bad guys and good guys are coming together. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, David.
Well, Rhys, I like what you're saying about stakes because I feel that's something that was maybe missing from the movie because I think Jack brought it up in our preliminary discussion there. It's called Dawn of Justice. So by the end of it, we expect them to be friends again and for the Justice League to be somewhat formed or in the beginning stages of it. So I dig that. The problem I have, or the question I'd have initially is a lot of the criticism directed towards this movie said that it was overstuffed and there was too much going on. And now you want to introduce Wonder Woman and Aquaman Green Lantern and Flash in bigger capacities into this already overfilled smorgasbord of superhero goodness that's going on. Do you think that might actually contribute more to the problems that are already there rather than solve them?
Yeah. Because it's a slightly different plot. So the movie, the first half an hour, we're just seeing that Batman's parents have died and he falls into this hole in the ground and boom, Batcave. And then he goes up in a tornado of bats and all of a sudden he's just, he's a Batman. We don't need that, right? We know Batman's parents are dead. Who cares? Move on. The film as well, there's lots of just different bits that I would just take out of it and it just aren't necessary, especially because this is a different plot. So adding these characters in, I mean, you don't need to have a lot of airtime on, Green Lantern. We already, we've all seen the Green Lantern movie. We don't need a lot of screen time for him. We don't actually need to focus too much on them. They have a few meetings here so you can understand why they're on that side and whatnot. But actually, the main plot of the movie is getting kind of taken out, so you can take away a lot of the rubbish that's in that movie that makes it so convoluted.
So basically, pitch me. You've said you don't like the Doomsday fight, right? And you want something else at the end that's Endgame-esque. Pitch me your film's significant action scene. What's going on there? Who's going up against who? Get me sold on this. Sizzle the steak for me here, Rhys.
Right. Okay. Right. Batman. I've already listed the teams. Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman. They're fighting off against Superman, Green Lantern, and Flash. Right. Aquaman, useless. Who cares? Flash is going to run rings around him, literally. He's useless. He'll just throw his trident. It'll fall. No one cares. Wonder Woman versus Green Lantern. They'll be going at it. Wonder Woman's probably going to come out victorious in that one because, unless Ryan Reynolds pulls off his Green Lantern costume as actually Deadpool, Wonder Woman's winning that fight. Then Batman v Superman. I actually quite liked the aspect of him having the kryptonite on a stick or like a sword or whatever, and that reduced Superman's power. So I actually quite liked that part. So I'd keep something along those lines in, so that their fight was a bit more safe. But ultimately, no one's really winning the fight because they're all going toe to toe, and I want this to end over at least one more film. So the big fight at the end is Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman versus Superman, Green Lantern, and Flash. I'm not opposed to more characters being in there, but my DC knowledge isn't great, so I didn't throw any more in. But that's the big fight.
That's fair enough, man. And the last question I have for you is this. You're introducing a team of superheroes against another team of superheroes. In a few months' time from the release of Batman vs. Superman, a little movie called Captain America Civil War hits movie screens, which sees two teams of superheroes who we've already gotten to know and built up over a course of a movie, finally having this culminative head-to-head. Do you think if you're actually basically doing the same plot as that film in a similar sort of way, that would make DC lose this quote-unquote war with Marvel in an even worse way than they already did with the first incarnation of Batman versus Superman?
No. I think it's a very good point.
Any elaboration?
You're probably right. They probably would lose that war because I do think Marvel are streets ahead right now, and I don't really ever see DC bringing it back. But if they'd done it first, you never know. And if they'd done it well, if the fight scene had gone really well, I think, and because what I'm saying is that it spans over one or two movies, or two or three movies, sorry, you've got DC fans talking about, who do you prefer, Batman, or do you prefer Superman, do you prefer Wonder Woman, do you prefer Aquaman? Because the people are actually talking about it, it kind of is bringing life to slowly failing genre of films. So I don't think necessarily they win, but I think it brings them a new life that they desperately need.
Fair enough, Rhys. Fair enough. Jack, the witness can rest. I'm done with Rhys for now.
Good, because I'm tired. I think you should, when you're considering the pictures here, David, I think you should consider the fact that Hal from Malcolm in the Middle as a bad guy, it just makes no sense, you know. So,
Rhys, that's a bit of an underhanded comment. However, will it be going in my notes? Absolutely, it will be. A good point well made. A good point well made.
Stuart, I'm going to come to you and ask you for your pitch in Jack's absence. I don't know where he's going. So, Stuart,
I don't know. Jack clearly has somewhere else better to be than the podcast he's hosting.
I just got a text on he says, "Oh, I don't like you guys. See you later."
So that earlier comment about me was a lie then.
He does find you boring.
Oh. My worst fears all condensed in the 1 week. First Lewis and now this.
Sure, I am here. I am judging and I am listening to you. All right, on you go, son. We've got this covered.
Okay.
I got what?
Thank you, Jack. Oh man, can I just say for the record, I'm absolutely terrified of the questions that David's going to like throw my way, because this is like a QC like cross examination here. But I'll give it my
Lord Advocate David Campbell.
Anyway, so my pitch for Batman v Superman, like I kind of hinted earlier on, there's plot points in the film that I feel would really benefit from being the plot as opposed to just moving storylines along. One of which is there's a little couple of minute broadcast in the middle of the movie where it poses the Superman question, which is, it's all these different aspects, like religious aspects, political, philosophical, scientific, and even like sociological debates about how Superman should behave and act on Earth. And to be perfectly honest, I feel like that should really be the key theme and the key plot line of this movie. So I'd personally like to trim all the fat of Batman v Superman, get all the Justice League stuff out of there, get that stupid ambush that they frame Superman for, where the soldiers just shoot some guys. Speaking of David the QC, if you were presented this case, David, where Superman was believed to have shot a village, I feel like your first and only defense would be the guy has lasers for eyes. Why does he need any guns?
Yeah, so I think that's fair.
That needs to be thrown out the window. That'll never hold up in court. But I feel like if you want to frame Superman, the Senate hearing bombing is the perfect way to go. So I'd like to treat it almost like a political thriller about the debates raised in the movie as to whether there should be a Superman. The Clark Kent plot line is about clearing Superman's name for this Senate bombing, which will be the event that Superman's framed for rather than the shootout. Bruce Wayne's plot is pretty much the same as the movies, but I feel like Lex Luthor should be more of a friendly business rival who stokes the xenophobia and fear that Batman feels towards Superman, as well as a casualty from the Senate bombing, which would be Commissioner Gordon. Because I feel like Gotham being so close to Metropolis, like it is in the movie, Commissioner Gordon would be there in some capacity, whether he's heading security or whether he's inside the building. So Commissioner Gordon's a casualty. That's Batman's motivation for taking out Superman, as well as what he's feeling. So there's no doomsday plot or the end battle. The villain's solely Lex Luthor, who I would like to portray is like a diehard Christian philanthropist, kind of not, I don't want to say alt-right, but like, you guys don't know the kind of person I'm talking about. He's a now up-and-coming politician who despises metahumans. He feels that human laws should be upheld by the government and not aliens or vigilantes, which also covers his hatred of Batman and Wonder Woman, because I don't feel like that's touched on in the original movie at all. And furthermore, I feel like his anti-Superman stance is religious, expanded on all of the lines that Jesse Eisenberg says in the film, like if God is all-powerful and angels coming from above. I feel like that dialogue's actually great. I really like that dialogue. Whether Jesse Eisenberg handles it well, I feel it's another conversation, but I do love all of that stuff that's brought up in the movie. Whether for the end fight, if there's no doomsday, what I'd like to do is the end fight is Lex Luthor still holding Superman's mother hostage, but he's on his own, and he knows that Superman could kill him. So what he's doing is he's got like a dead man's trigger, and if Superman harms him in any way, then he'll release the trigger and detonate explosives that will kill Martha Kent in like a non-disclosed location. So once the Batman-Superman fight is resolved, Batman has to infiltrate the complex to release her, and that's purely physical, like the warehouse scene at the end, whereas Superman has no physical interaction with Lex Luthor at all, and he instead, if you want to throw another Incredibles analogy in, he gets a monologue, and Superman uses Clark Kent, I can't even say his name, Clark Kent's journalistic nature to probe him and ask the right questions as to motivations and keep him talking long enough for Batman to save Martha, and I feel like that's my pitch.
Yeah, there's a lot in there, Stuart, that I really dig. There's a couple of questions I have though. You've streamlined the Superman plot line here, which I like, because I think what's lost on a lot of people about Batman versus Superman is that it's a Superman sequel. It's the follow-up to Man of Steel, and we don't get from me enough of a follow-on from that particular movie in terms of the story. Here's the question I have. You've got a lot of Henry Cavill doing some acting in this movie. You've got him talking, you've got him, interacting with a lot of folk. Do you think he's a strong enough actor to hold up this new dramatic element to the movie that you're proposing here?
I feel like Henry Cavill's not terrible. I feel like, again, it depends on what he's given. I have to have a lot of trust in Zack Snyder as well, maybe, for better or worse, but I feel like he could play that positivity really well if Lex Luthor represents this kind of cynicism, alt-right view of politics that's not open to change. I feel like Henry Cavill can have that optimism that's at odds with that, with this new kind of way of thinking, and how rather than looking inward and being closed off and xenophobic, we should be open to not just Superman existing in America, but all cultures and all races existing in the country.
Yeah, I like that. The other question I have is you've been bold actually here with this Senate bomb, and in particular who you've put there as a casualty of it, and that's Commissioner Gordon. Two questions, sort of double-handed. Who is playing Commissioner Gordon here? Does it really matter? And two, you're taking Commissioner Gordon then off the table for the rest of the DCEU. Looking at it as a long-term vision here, do you think that would be a mistake?
I'm actually quite glad you asked that, because when I drafted this, it was a little kind of something I wanted to add, but didn't want to go too far in depth. I haven't watched Justice League, but I say stay J.K. Simmons in the role. Like, he's obviously an older Commissioner Gordon. I'm sure he's a good actor. I'm sure he can handle it just fine. I feel like in The Dark Knight Returns, obviously old Bruce Wayne and old Commissioner Gordon have that relationship. I'm sure there could be a conversation or two before he goes into the Senate hearing that could be really powerful. But I feel like if I would completely take Commissioner Gordon's dead. Like, I would take him off the table. And if you want to bring another Batman movie like for the DCEU, which I feel should, because Ben Affleck is, I haven't had a chance to say this, but I feel like he is really, really good as Bruce Wayne and Batman in this movie. He's probably my favourite part. A good plot line for a sequel would be Batman, re-emerging as a crime fighter, but also having to deal with a new commissioner. And I feel like there's a wealth of storylines there. Can he be trusted? Is it a good commissioner? Is it a bad commissioner? And Batman at odds with that.
Yeah. Very good, Stuart. Very good answer to these questions. One more. Let's see how you take this one, because it is quite politically influenced. The thing is, we've seen what you're presenting here with the change of the Lex Luthor character is The Boys season 2 was just out. We've seen a sort of portrayal of Stormfront, which I feel is the way you're kind of taking this here. The sort of like positive front of it, motivating a fan base, motivating a group of people, and then behind the scenes there's a bit of nefariety going on. The question is, that's in 2020, that's 4 years on from the election in America that was very, very, very divisive at the time. Do you think 2016 is too soon to introduce that portrayal of the character?
I mean, I wasn't naming any names, but if you want to draw the Trump comparison, at that time he obviously wasn't elected, and it was, it could be talked about from a safe distance. I wouldn't go that far into it. I wouldn't say that I would pose Lex Luthor as a very competent politician who makes a lot of good points and can be seen as good for the will of the country, especially like with his background as a very successful businessman. And I use the word successful businessman as opposed to any other politician we're parodying here. But I wouldn't lean really hard into like the alt-right Christian stuff. I feel like it's just another potential factor to give Lex Luthor motivation. Like, it's not his character, it's solely his motivation. I feel like my Lex Luthor, whether he's Jesse Eisenberg or not, I wouldn't have him as the jittery loose cannon. I would have him as a very, not stoic, but a very charming, knows exactly what to say and when to say it. Like, even if you want to throw in a dusting of TV interviews that he does, he answers every question with precision. That's the type of character I would put in.
Yeah. Like that, Jack. I have a verdict here, unless there's anything else I have to do.
No, but I'll leave you stone over it just for a couple of minutes. Just to get. I don't want you to rush into any like rash decisions. You know what I mean? I'll check my notes here. This is very serious stuff. So I'll double check, make sure I'm 100% confident. Right?
How hard is it to spell a 4-letter word? R-A-Y-X. That's quite easy.
What I would like Adam, Rhys and Stewart to do, though, this is going to have no bearing in your outcome, David. I want you to send me your votes anyway and who you think would have won this pitch battle if we were doing it normally, and we'll see if you agree with David's verdict come the end. So once you're doing that, I'll reveal it now that our next episode is going to be on. I can't do any drum roll because I'm not good, but it's going to be The Mandalorian. Oh. And this is the way. This is the way, and this will coincide with the release of Series 2, but we won't be talking about that. We'll be discussing Season 1 and how we would maybe better that, and it'll be hosted by none other than Rhys Cook.
Yep, I've still not watched it right enough. I was meant to watch it today. I'll get it watched at some point.
You said this about Lego Batman. How do you better perfection? I'll be listening in to see what people's opinions on that one are. I bloody love that first season, man. I cannot wait for the second one to come out.
David, I won't lie to you. I won't lie to you. What I just asked the boys to do is kind of pointless because they all just voted for each other. So
right.
Adam voted Rhys, Rhys voted Stewart, and Stewart voted Adam. So you do get the ultimate say on who wins this.
Fair enough.
We had a first three-way tie.
I think
we should cut the episode there. I'm the champion.
Have you guys heard the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears? Because I think that's what's happened here. In my opinion, we have a case of too little, too much, and then just right. Adam, I like what you're saying, man. I like Bryan Cranston, but I think that you yourself said, you quoted, I've got a quote here, you said he aces his parts as Jesse Eisenberg. I think there's positives and negatives to Jesse Eisenberg's performance, and I don't think that changes when you bring Bryan Cranston in. I don't think it's a universally positive change. There'll be bits that are better, but I think there'll be bits that Jesse Eisenberg actually brightens up the screen that'll be muted if we're to bring Bryan Cranston in. And because that's your only significant change there, I need to rule you out for that reason. All right, Rhys, okay. Rhys, man. Oh. Rhys, there was so much going on here. Like, there's so many notes. It ultimately comes down to this. My main problems with Batman versus Superman is there's too much in there. There's not enough character stuff and not enough focus. All right. You've actually mentioned Joker and Riddler getting involved in the opposite team from Lex Luthor at one point, and that is where I was like, this man is taking the cake. Like, I'd hate to see you above mate, because that plate must be overflowing. And the fact that it could span 2 or 3 films, I don't necessarily think that's a negative. I think that this movie could have been the original could have been 2 or 3 films in itself, but ultimately just too much going on there. Stewart, I came on this show and I was like, I don't know how anyone can save Batman versus Superman. That is the best pitch that I think someone could have given for it. Like, the way you streamlined the Superman stuff into the like, who is the Superman? What is the Superman? Like, what should he be doing?
Why is the Superman?
Yeah, exactly. The Drax the Destroyer
Where
approach to
is
it.
Superman?
Yeah, it's like streamlining that, the question, like a real sort of hard-hitting exploration of that concept would have been great. The Senate bombing was something I was thinking about. It's not played big enough in the original film, so making that a focal point, I think, is a stroke of genius. The change to Lex Luthor's character, I'm all in for. Absolutely all in for that. That is perfect in my opinion, and I love the end fight. We talk about it's too much sometimes. Like there was a period in superhero movies where it was a big beam in the sky and you're trying to fight towards it and fight off all of these villains, and that's how it ended. I love this duality to it. You've got the emotional battle between Superman and Lex Luthor, and then you increase that already brilliant Batman warehouse fight scene. See if we get more of that. All in for it, Stuart. I think the other guys, I get where you're coming from. There were some good points to it, but for me, Stuart was the clear winner today. Well done.
Thank you, David. I humbly accept your offer to come and work for your podcast. Thank you, seriously. That was tough. Everyone had good points, apart from Rhys. Don't know what he was on about.
No. Okay.
I voted for you because it was very Injustice. Like, funny that I mentioned it. I don't know. Do you know what Injustice is? The storyline? Do you know?
No.
I'll say just about it afterwards. But I can't really go into it. There's almost too much detail. But like yours was always kind of on the same plot lines. That's one of these why I voted for you.
Right now, I thought that, didn't you, Adam?
Sorry.
I was saying you got an absolute hard on at that, didn't you?
Yeah. See that the thing is, like, you've talked about the story arc, but it had to be within this movie. So that's why I was like, I like this, but it was the problem with the DCU. You're introducing Green Lantern, Flash, and all these guys. It's just like faceless characters who were meant to like for brand recognition rather than any investment in those versions of the characters themselves. So if that hadn't been the case, it might have went a different way. But because that was the way I had to look at it, that's why I judged it like that.
No, well, I actually thought Stuart's pitch was very good.
I like Stuart's pitch too.
I liked the point you made, David, that it was maybe a bit too close to home with Trump being about at the time, and I was thinking back to last week's episode where I was said in Avatar that because that they were avatars and they weren't real humans, you could kind of relate to it more, and you don't lose your right wing audience. So I was thinking, maybe I could clutch it here if I brought that point up quick enough, but I did think as well that the problem I had when I watched it is I was just very bored by the end of it. That I couldn't. It took me a few days to think of how I would actually fix it because it was just boring. So it kind of fell flat. I didn't think it was a bad movie. I just didn't think it was good. So it was hard to fix. So yeah. I struggled for a pitch for this week. Sorry to the fans that normally expect such high standards for me.
I think on that note, we'll wrap it up there. Adam, commiserations, but I wouldn't have voted for your pitch.
Thanks for that.
Who would you have voted for, Jack?
I would have voted for Stewart. He sold me on the Lex Luthor being a Christian philanthropist. I started laughing at that, so I'm a big fan.
Oh, you said philanthropist? Oh, yeah, I thought you said philanthropist.
Whoa!
What Lex Luthor gets on in the DCU is it's just what it is. But commiserations to yourself, Rhys, as well.
Thanks, Jack. Great hosting this week.
Thank you. And Stuart, congratulations! You're this week's Big Picture.
Thank you. I hard fought for what Rhys is talking about will be in the Snyder cut of my movie and available whenever we're able to sell it. But yeah, thanks, Jack. Good hosting, and thanks to our guest. Great guesting.
Yes, our thanks to our first ever guest, David Campbell.
The best guest we've had on this podcast so far.
By far.
I appreciate that, and long may it continue. Listen, boys, I had a great time. I forgot how much I had thoughts about this movie, both good and bad. So it was good to hear all this stuff. You ever want me back, just give me a wee call.
I'll wait out the floor.
We only want people to vote for me.
The floor's yours, David. You can plug away anything you've got coming up, like show-wise for first-time films or anything else you've got going on in the near future?
Yeah, like I said, 10 Reasons Not to Make a Movie is in post-production right now, so I'll be starting the advertising campaign for that very, very soon. You can that'll be the only thing I share from that point on when we're running with that. First-time films, you can find Spotify, iTunes alongside FTTV and Full Time Football, the Full FT podcast brand, is alive and well over on all those platforms. And like I said, we've got a lot of stuff coming up. I'm still over on Eat, Sleep, Suplex, Retweet with yourself, Jack, doing some stuff over there. So, it's good times. Happy to be here. And yeah, just find me wherever you want.
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks to listeners as well, who's supporting us on this journey. I hope you enjoyed this. Another fantastic episode, and we will see you all for the next one. Goodbye.